I have been trying to parse the katakana they have for Thexder. Katakana often only loosely matches the word that it's trying to mimic, but Tegza just doesn't make any sense. Thexder was something that I was actually a bit familiar with before I encountered on the Famicom. The first PC game I ever played was Sierra's localization of it. As you might guess from that, Thexder did start out as a computer game. Before we pry too deeply here, I need to point out that this is Square's first Famicom game. Most of their 8-bit console efforts are focused on the Famicom disk system, where they will port a bunch of computer games. The other thing to take a quick note of is that the cartridge has Nintendo's US trademark on it. It's actually been on packaging a few times at this point, but you don't often see the oval with Nintendo in it on Japanese releases. For the moment, it's far more common to see the Japanese trademark, which is this rectangle that just says Nintendo in it. As for the game Thexder itself, are you ready for another one about a space fighter that turns into a robot? At least this one's more of a run and gun rather than a shoot 'em up. But you can really tell what was in the cultural zeitgeist in Japan in the early 80s. The story is that the weapon development ship Rapina was captured in a tractor beam by an asteroid that happened to have a giant alien complex in it. Unable to escape, they send in the armored suit Thexder to try to disable the asteroid. Your primary goal on most stages is just to find the exit tube on the far side. You start by flying in spacecraft mode, and you turn into robot when you collide with a surface, or you press in the opposite direction to what you're flying. The spacecraft can move freely in 8 directions, and it's a pretty good strategy on some levels to just use the spacecraft and fly by everything. Robot mode can walk around, jump when you press up, and turn back into the spaceship when you press down. The robot can also walk on top of enemies. That sounds useful, but if the enemy moves up, it collides with you anyways. Thexder fires its main gun when you press the A button, and it's an auto-fire weapon. In computer versions, this was a beam, but on the Famicom, it just fires bullets. In robot mode, the bullets automatically spray in the direction of an enemy, and that can be a bit of a problem when the gun wants to target something that's not a threat while another enemy is barreling down on you. In spacecraft mode, the gun only shoots straight ahead. The other ability that Thexder has is that it can spend 30 energy units to put up a shield. So that number in the lower right hand corner are your energy units, and if it reaches 0, then you explode and it's game over. Colliding with an enemy when you don't have a shield up drains your energy at a high speed. However, the barrier also slowly drains away on its own. So it can be worthwhile to not have your barrier up when you feel like you can advance safely. Then fire the barrier up when you're under a threat. Killing certain enemies recovers energy, but there's no visual cue to tell you which enemies those are. The levels in Thexder are a real maze, and you can go down long alleys that will take you a minute or two to reach the end, only to discover that there's no outlet. That becomes a real problem because after 1 minute, homing missiles start spawning in the maze. These missiles are just normal enemies, but the quantity and how they track directly into you makes them exceptionally deadly. So you're going to want to run straight to the end. There are only 5 map layouts, though. You blow up a reactor at the end of the 5th stage, and then the maps just repeat with new enemy patterns. There is an ending to Thexder. You have to clear 99 stages to see it, and naturally there are no continues. However, there are a pair of codes that can help you. First, there's an infinite energy code, and the code is pretty tricky to enter because it does require resetting the game over and over again. Once you have infinite energy, you can't die, so it's just a matter of running to the end eventually. But if you don't want to take a couple hours to do that, you can always use this code to skip straight to the ending. And so, I present to you the dramatic ending of Thexder. Well, that was pretty underwhelming, wasn't it? If you want to try to do that the hard way, I have a couple of gameplay tips for you. First, enemy starting positions are always the same, so you can slowly walk in to trigger one or two at a time, wipe them out, and then advance. The other trick is that enemies can't pass through each other, so you can take advantage of a crowd to make them jam up and be unable to move. So obviously, Thexder isn't a very good game. The big thing that you can't really tell from screenshots is just how annoying it is to control. Trying to transform into jet mode and fly through all these narrow passages is really rough, especially since anytime that there's enough room to turn back into a robot, you'll tend to pop right back into that form. I can't even say that I would recommend any of the computer versions of Thexder. This one just isn't very fun.